Is it on? Yeah. Can you switch it off for a minute? No, that's fine. There's a question on there behind my back. Yeah. Just think about that. Yeah, thanks. Come a little short. That's fine. Can you just pass me my flask? I've got flu and it's got hot water in it in case I can't remember. So, tell me when you want to start. People are still walking in, so if you want to tell them last call, then they'll come in. They come on stage and then I read everything? Okay, once you invite them on, then I'll start. All right. And then he goes down and Dr. Umar comes up. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. And do I time the talk? 40 minutes each? You let me know, okay? All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Testing. All right, how's that? Can you hear? Yeah? Thank you. Can I bring it a bit more center? Because I'm too far back. Yeah. Can you move that? Thank you. A bit more. Yeah. I want it closer. Okay. Thank you, Darby. Thank you very much. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala al-ashrafil anbiya wal-mursaleen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Good evening and welcome to tonight's talk. My name is Soraya Khairuddin and I'm your MC for the night. Tonight's talk is a culmination of a month-long series of really excellent and exciting talks and events that began with Riz. And tonight wouldn't be possible without the cooperation and dedication of 4 key organizations: Mbara, Idcon Integrated School, Majlis Al Rauda, and Al Ghazali Center. Welcome, everyone. In a world where monoculture exists in almost every aspect of our lives, the unique and blessed roles of each gender is not only blurred, but mired in a monoculture of blandness and sameness. This lecture will address the nobility that comes with being a man or a woman. Our first speaker today is Imam Afroz Ali, and he has had the advantage of a modern university education, as well as more traditional-based studies in places like Yemen, America, and Mauritania. He has received licenses or ijazas to teach from some of the most esteemed scholars of our time. Imam Afroz is a co-founder of Seekers Hub Global with Sheikh Faraz Rabbani, and is the founder of Al Ghazali Center, his real passion, where he serves as a scholar in residence. He also conducts corporate training on multiple subjects. In addition, Imam Afroz is a founding member of the Australian Religious Response to Climate Change and has been selected by the Royal Islamic Strategic Studies Center since 2012 as one of the 500 most influential Muslims. Imam Afroz deeply understands the power that role models and leaders have in nurturing excellence in others, and he also likes the occasional game of soccer and cricket. It gives me great pleasure to invite Imam Afroz up onto the stage to present his talk. Imam Afroz will focus on the modern problem of diminished manhood and shatter some misconceptions of what it means to be a man in contemporary society, and what are the key paradigm shifts that are needed in order to reorient the male towards achieving his full potential as a man. It's all yours, Imam.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillahi ma sha Allah walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-'aliyyil azim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. 3 things is getting me very nervous. First and foremost, our Sheikh, Dr. Umar, sitting right in front here. Secondly, it's freezing in here. And thirdly, I've only got 30 minutes to speak about a pretty controversial talk. I was specifically asked to, in fact, speak about a contemporary phenomenon in which the male's role as well as the status is being undermined by males themselves, as well as a society that in fact is out there. And I will be speaking a little bit about that in order to, inshallah ta'ala, not to criticize, but to motivate, encourage, and hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, to help us to see how we can change the current dilemma, and I think in many ways a catastrophe, that males are not standing to the challenges that they have been given forward, and our sisters, the females, the women, who are in fact doing more than the call of duty upon them. And there's a reason that in fact this particular question has to be addressed. And I think we as males in the XY world, we need to stand up and self-critique ourselves as opposed to everybody else. Well, there's not everybody else, there's another gender, that's all I think, that would do so, because that might sound as if it is a gender war that is going out there, and I think we have to actually stand to speak about that. For example, I come from Australia, and for Australians, we have to speak about the plight of the Aboriginal people, as opposed to the Aboriginal people constantly speaking about their plight, because soon it starts to sound like as if they're complaining about it. And I think this is a critical element that we have to actually take into account, so please allow me to challenge our thoughts. First and foremost, why is it important to critique and discuss the male, and why females ought to be given a priority today more than ever? Gender is a unique gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but with this gift comes responsibilities that fulfill each other's rights. Gender is less about equality and more about balance, equity, and completeness, because men and women are in fact different. On the one hand, equality for access to education, for example, must be upheld for everybody. But women are disadvantaged in a mainly patriarchal world today, and as such must be given a greater priority and facilitation to fill the gap that exists. As an example, thus being equitable to their needs by additional effort over and beyond what may be granted to men, in order that there is a just and balanced completeness between the two genders. The diagram over here, I think, really shows how the concept of equality becomes problematic. That in fact it is the equity that we seek, where people who at any point of time have a lesser opportunity because of external forces. And I think in my personal opinion today, it is a negatively patriarchal world. And we need both, quoting our dear teacher Dr. Umar, we need both a patriarchal and a matriarchal world, and that they both in fact complement each other. Of course, the reality is neither equitable or equal, as the diagram suggests. I wanted to share a lion story and take from this particular story of the lion and seeing the man in this regard. And we may see the National Geographic documentaries about this and get really excited about the lion, but we need to understand what's happening behind the scene in this regard, what the lion is all about. And the reason why I'm using the lion as an analogy, because often today particularly the men is only seen when they seem to project a macho attitude. But everything has their place. And is it the machoism of the man that makes a man, or is it something else? So let me talk a little bit about the lion. First and foremost, a lion leaves its pride to work, to go around and protect its pride for up to 12 days a time. It separates itself from the pride, and in fact, its responsibility being protecting the family requires 2 to 3 lions in a particular pride to cover approximately 200 square kilometers. 200 square kilometers is similar to your federal territory of Malaysia, which I think includes Putrajaya, Kuala Lumpur, and there's Labuan. There you go. So I knew 2 out of 3. That'll get me pass in the Malaysian exams. That's how large a space 2 or 3 lions in fact have to look after in order to protect the pride, and particularly obviously the young and the females in that regard. You will notice obviously I don't have much to say about females today. of course, and anyone who has interacted with me will know that I speak a lot about females, and inshallah we have another time to actually speak about the various burdens that the women take in today's world, to actually understand the various pressures that in fact come upon the women. So today I'm going to be focusing on men, and then Dr. Omar will come and add the sweetener and balance it out, inshallah ta'ala. Over this 12 period, the lion does not eat and only drinks water over maybe once every 4 to 5 days. So by the time the lion returns around 12 days later, it is completely exhausted and starving to death. When the lionesses kill its next hunt, the lion will kill anything in front of it out of near-death experience. That is the experience of the lion every other fortnight in relation to returning. Now, this animal lion is very much celebrated for its awe and sheer strength and courage. But if only the lionesses, other lions knew, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given them this gnosis, that the weakest a lion is when it returns to its pride. That in fact it could be killed almost instantly. So this sacrifice that a lion makes to bring itself to a situation where it could be killed is what we would refer to a lion chivalry. And I want to talk a little bit about chivalry today, and of course Dr. Omar will also speak about this. The other interesting thing is that one day the same lion that protects its pride will actually be removed by force and potentially killed from its pride from inside as once a younger or stronger lion in fact rises up. So really for the lesson here for us is that for us men who like to be seen as lions, which might be problematic, that not to forget your place, because this modern phenomenon of feminizing men, either from food, there are a lot of foods that in fact affect us at a biological level that in fact feminizes men, psychologically as well as bodily, without a doubt. Also ourselves, that we do not do what we have been asked to do. Imagine if a lion did not do what it had to do, that in fact it would not have a family ultimately, for example. And also the current dialogue, discourse in relation to the social and disempowerment that in fact men have to also experience in this regard. I do want to remind that today I'm speaking only about men. I do have to say a little bit about good, nice things about men as well, just in case when I leave from here, my tariq might be poisoned, so I have to be careful about that. There is a social disempowerment that is also happening against men. And we both as males and females have to work to make sure that this does not actually occur, because the pressures of life today is without a doubt disempowering every one of us in one way or the other. What I also want to talk about is to understand the nature of our worldly status here today. That if we are to chase the world, and I think many men are busy chasing the world with the justification, excuse, and potentially legitimate to in fact go and work so hard. As I remember in one of the marriage workshops that I actually ran, where one of the scholars, one of the teachers in fact mentioned that you have men who will call their wives up and say, honey, I'm working really hard, and I know this is the 18th hour of the day. I haven't seen you yesterday, I haven't seen you today, but look, I'm going to work hard for 20 years, because then after 20 years we can be together. And that next 20 years will never arrive, because it just becomes another 20 years and another 20 years and so on. So we have to understand our place and how this world interacts with us, and also what actually ultimately gives us status. So I want to show you something here briefly that Imam Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu was mentioning in relation to, particularly when he was mentioning la tahzan, don't actually get depressed, because these worldly pleasures will ultimately destroy you. And I want to mention, particularly for males, and I think this is an advice for all of us in this regard, that we have to be very careful about the worldly pleasures, the materialism, the attachment to the material, to seek reliance from the creation will not only destroy us in this world, but it will be annihilation in the hereafter. So first and foremost, he said that the sweetest of food you can eat is honey. But honey is the vomit of a bee. And the quenches, the best of the quenches of thirst, being water, any animal will beat you in that regard. Just go to a water hole and see, put your head down into the water hole and see which animal you can beat in drinking the water from the water hole. All animals will beat you. Thirdly, the best of clothes you can wear is silk. Yet silk is the feces of silkworms. And fourthly, the most gallant of transport in the time of Imam Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he mentioned horses, and he said, but most people get killed over it because war, etc. I want to project it into the modern world where our status seems to be starting to be defined if we drive a BMW or a Mercedes. As you can see, I don't know cars in more expensive than that, but something like that. That how many people are killed? The number one killer is in fact ultimately traffic in the world, if we don't talk about diseases themselves. Road traffic accidents and ultimately fatalities is so high. So to start to show yourself with status because of what you use as a vehicle is ultimately a very false definition of who you are. And lastly, the most pleasurable of pleasures, and that is sexual intimacy. And he said that it is a place of meeting where you relieve yourselves. So if you look at the worldly pleasures, they're not necessarily pleasant. And yet people will fight for this and actually kill each other. I would personally don't recommend too many Western songs at all. But one song that does capture all of this is I think Seal is the second singer. There's an original singer to the song called "This Is a Man's World." Does anybody know who's the first singer? You know that American singer who, living in America. Aye, that guy. Does anybody know his name? You're all so pious, mashallah ta'ala. Barakallahu feekum. Alhamdulillah. So do not define yourself with the material. And we as men, we have to be very careful of this because our work, our nature can lead us to be attached to the very creation which ultimately destroys us. And so to enter into the conversation of chivalry, the story of Futuwa, the closest word to Futuwa would be chivalry. That chivalry is in fact not a man who can fight a war. And again, I want to remind, I'm speaking from the perspective of a man, but who can give his life fighting for others. And we had at RIS, and Dr. Omar repeated a number of times for a few years, in fact, about the status of who Muhammad Ali was. That one of the quotes which came from Harun Sellers, he said that Muhammad Ali was not great because he knocked down a dozen of people, but that he lifted the lives of millions. This is what chivalry is about. Secondly, that chivalry is not about fighting for your rights, but foregoing them for the good of others. And thirdly, chivalry is not about being tough against others, but having the courage to be gentle in tough times. This is chivalry. Selflessness, gentleness. I do want to read a story that actually in fact is narrated by Imam Sulami as well as Ibn Kathir and others in relation to the story of Futuwa. And his Kitab al-Futuwa, he mentions a particular circumstance in relation to the time of Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So let me read this. It narrates that 3 young and handsome men approached Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu and introduced themselves. 2 of them were brothers, and the third was a person that came with them but had killed the father of the 2 brothers standing next to him. The 2 brothers explained that this third person was a murderer, having killed their father, and they wanted a had punishment to be implemented on the person. Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu mentions, he turns to the third person and asks him in relation to explaining himself, and the young man said, what actually happened? He said that I came here in fact by my own accord. In fact, the brothers did not bring me here because they didn't even see me kill their father. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my witness that the two brothers are telling the truth. Let me explain to you, he said, what had happened. He says, I was coming to Medina on my horse to visit the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Before entering the boundaries of Medina, I stopped to make wudu. My horse started to eat some fruits that was hanging over the wall, and I quickly got up and pulled the horse back. But at this time I saw an angry old man coming towards us, angry at the horse having eaten the fruit. He picked up a large stone and banged on the head of the horse, and my horse fell and died. The horse was my only other worldly possession, and I became angry at this and picked up the same stone and threw at the man. It hit him and killed him. I then went to the home of the man and told the two brothers of their father's faith from my own hands. So give me the punishment deserving of my crime. And you know what the deserving crime, the punishment for that crime is, although I did not intend to kill him. Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu said to the young man that the punishment for murder was execution, and that his admission is sufficient for him now to be punished. The young man agreed, saying that so be it, for I do not want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a sin upon myself. The young man then asked if he can be given a small amount of time to fulfill an obligation. And I want you to listen to what's happening here. That he wants to fulfill an obligation, saying that he is a guardian of the wealth of a child. That it is hidden inside his house, and before he is in fact executed, he needs to in fact arrange for that wealth to be handed over to somebody else, so that the little boy would not be deprived of his wealth when he grows up. Umar bin al-Khattab could not let him go, because that would be unjust leaving him go, because that nobody knew him. Nobody knew what he would do. Would he run away? The young man said to Umar, if I had wanted to escape, I could have gone long time ago. I am the one who reported the crime. But Umar bin al-Khattab held firm to his own duty, that could not let him go, and that he had to fulfill the responsibility as the Khalifa for the had punishment. The young man turned to the people sitting and pointed to one man that he looked pious, and he said to him that this man will guarantee for my return. They're strangers, but he looks at a man and he says he will in fact guarantee for my return. This man was the great companion of the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Dar al-Ghifari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. I would like you to in fact find a little bit more about Abu Dar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. We don't have a time here to actually speak about him, alayhi salam, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who without a hesitation accepted the young man, singling him out to be his guarantee, even though they did not know each other. This meant that if the young man did not return, Abu Dar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu would be executed instead. 3 days time, this is the amount of time he had asked for. It came, and the time of Asr came. People started to gather, and the two brothers came to Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and they found that by the time the crowd gathers, Abu Dar is already there, waiting. It was getting late, towards Maghrib, and people started to cry, knowing that Abu Dar would be executed if the young man did not show up. But soon enough, the young man did show up. He apologized, and he got ready to be judged. He got up and turned to the people and said, because people were mocking him at this point of time, and he said, a person of Iman is loyal to his word. The one who fails to keep his word is a hypocrite. Who can escape death, which comes sooner or later anyway? Did you think I was going to disappear and hide and make people who hate Islam say the Muslims do not keep their word anymore? And the people turned to Abu Dar, asking why he had put himself in such a situation, not even knowing the young man's fine character. So he replied, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, not at all. But I did not feel that I could refuse him when he singled me out, as it would not have been in keeping with the laws of generosity. Should I be the one to make people say that there is no more kindness in Islam? The two brothers, seeing this and hearing all of this, began to cry at the compassion and kindness they had just witnessed in front of them. And they spoke out, and they said, we forgive this young man. Should we be the ones to make people say that there is no more compassion left in Islam? So chivalry is really about mercy. Selflessness makes you courageous. Kindness and compassion makes you courageous, makes you an honorable person. And this is one of the things that the Qurayshis misunderstood about the Prophet ﷺ's hilm, that they saw his forbearance as if he was a coward, wa'udhu billah. But his hilm was in fact courage to be gentle at a time when there were tough times. And that takes a lot more courage than when you are in the state of power. As we know, he had that situation when he returned to Mecca. And we know the story about that. To move forward, I want to end by talking about the metaphysics of gender briefly. The male, female, and the masculine, feminine phenomenon. First and foremost, the male and female dichotomy is in fact a physical phenomenon. But masculine and feminine complementarity is a metaphysical phenomenon. Let me give you a brief example of this. The sun and the moon. The sun, who knows in the Arabic word, is it a masculine or feminine word? The sun. It's a feminine word. And the moon? Of course, it's got to be masculine. It's the other way, right? It's not the other way around. There's no third choice there. At least in metaphysics, there is no third choice. I don't think there is. The sun's light is what in fact falls upon the moon. So this male moon reflects the beauty of the feminine sun. Its beauty is only appreciated if in other words, the moon's beauty is only appreciated if it reflects the feminine. But also understand that the superb radiance of the feminine sun is only appreciated through the humbled moon. The sun is very difficult to see. In fact, you have to veil the sun to see it. I hope you are making connections there. Similarly, it is for example, the masculine shadow that allows us to appreciate the majesty and the beauty of the sun. The shadow tells us a lot about sun. What we know about the sun, in fact, a lot of it is based on what the shadow does. And in fact, a lot that we know about the sun is what the moon does itself. So really, ultimately, the beauty of the male arises because its inward feminine nature is projected and manifested outward, and its radiance and its beauty is seen through the feminine nature. It is only when the man becomes gentle, compassionate, intellectual, forbearing, that his beauty is seen. Not out of his chauvinism, machoism, and toughness. And so we have to also understand that everything has an outward masculinity and everything has an inward femininity. A male has femininity in that, and that's what makes you a real man. Your feminine nature. And the other way around, outward femininity also has an inward masculinity. So we have to understand that as men, it is very important that we in fact bring out from us, understanding in a very conscious manner, that it is our feminine nature that ultimately makes us strong. The masculine qualities are seen through those feminine nature. It's very, very easy to see a person who is so kind, so gentle, etc., which are feminine qualities by which in fact the male is decorated. So the lessons here, as I end, the lessons on chivalry. First and foremost, I want to say to you as a man, for you as men here, to be a serving lion. Your greatness is from your selflessness. Your greatness is from you being a selfless servant. Be a servant of God by serving your wife, your sister, your mother, your aunt, women of this world. Anything, by the way, that is beautiful is always veiled, but everything that is beautiful always carries truth with it. And if you interact with that truth in the right manner, truth will manifest out of you. And secondly, to be a chivalrous knight. Be a selfless servant, be humble, and you will be elevated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't seek power, Don't seek machoism. I mean, I know of an Aikido master sitting right here. I think he's very chivalrous. The first time I met him, I thought, I've done a little bit of, hoo-ha self-defense as well. And I looked at him and said, I think I could take him. Until I saw his gentleness that allowed me to see how courageous, honorable, and strong he is. And that is a fact. I'm not making that up to just make it all sound really nice. It in fact is a fact. So ultimately, be a physical male, but be a metaphysical feminine. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Would you like to stay? Thank you very much, Imam Afroz. I was so engrossed in the talk that I've kind of got my notes out of order, but here goes. Our second speaker is Sheikh Dr. Umar Faruq Abd-Allah. And he's an American Muslim who was raised a Protestant Christian in Columbus, Nebraska. And in 1969, he won a Woodrow Wilson Fellowship. An entrance to Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, to pursue a PhD program in English literature. Shortly after coming to Cornell, something very important happened in Dr. Abdullah's life. He came across the autobiography of Malcolm X. And after reading it, it inspired him to embrace Islam. In early 1970, January 2nd, 1970, he taught at the universities of Windsor in Ontario, Temple, and Michigan. He's also taught Arabic in Spain, and at the Department of Islamic Studies at King Abdul Aziz University in Jeddah. Since 2000, he has been working as the chair and scholar in residence at the Nawawi Foundation in Chicago. In June last year, he delivered a program entitled The Obligation of Muslims in the Provision of Good to the World. And this was presented at the court of King Mohammed VI in Morocco. Dr. Omar remains a very much sought-after speaker internationally and as a scholar of Islam. Please give him a welcome.
This is what you used.
Dr. Omar, just give you a brief intro, another one. Yeah, good. Dr. Omar will address about the important topic of chivalry and the need for it in today's society. What is chivalry in Islam's tradition, and does it still exist? Dr. Omar, all yours.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. نوينا التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والتأدب والتأديب والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله والسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء مرضات الله ووجهه وقربه وثوابه سبحانه. اللهم افتح علينا بحكمتك وانشر علينا برحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. يا عليم علمنا من علمك ما ترضى به عنا ولا تؤاخذنا بما تعلمه منا. يا حليم خلقنا بخلق الحلم وحققنا بحقائق العلم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. This last summer we had a Zawiya in Spain, and our topic was the male and female principles, what it means to be truly human. And we discussed this for many days, more than 10 days, and we discussed it from different points of view. We had different scholars, and we did this sort of in-house, meaning that because the issue of gender is such a provocative and maybe even explosive today, and we wanted to talk about it as honestly as we could, and we wanted to try to find what Islam really says about this issue, then we felt that let's have this really sort of in-house among ourselves. And we also understood from the very beginning that we have to be extremely careful in the way that we talk about this, because of the fact that there are certain misstatements that could be made which could in fact have legal ramifications. One of the greatest speakers there, for example, is a barrister in England. He's a very great man, extremely intelligent man, but anything misspoken or possibly taken out of context could debar him. He might not be able to practice law anymore. So this issue has become highly politicized. It has become an issue of great ideological content, and so we felt we have to deal with it very carefully. One of the things that we might say is that when we look at the discussion of gender today in the world, maybe in the West more than other places, that one of the points that has to be made is that, again, without taking positions and without trying to offend anyone, but the gender talk that pertains to the so-called sexual revolution and that pertains to things like altering gender and so forth, this didn't just drop out of the sky. Okay, this is not something that just happened coincidentally. And therefore, one of the things we need to be very honest about is that ideas have genealogies. In our tradition, of course, we want to know the genealogies of the ideas that we believe in. We want to know who taught you that, and who taught him or her, and where does it go back to. And so also when we talk about the issue of gender today, then there are chains of, if not transmission, influence that are very important. And especially with regard to the issue of gender, you have, first of all, or maybe this is not, but first big figure is Karl Marx. This is the middle of the 19th century. And a lot of the gender talk will go back to him. And then you come forward, you have a number of other figures, but perhaps most important then is Sigmund Freud. And then going forward you come to Wilhelm Reich. It's hard for me not to pronounce a German name in a German way. But it's Wilhelm, W-I-L-H-E-L-M. Reich is R-E-I-C-H. He is the one, in fact, who coins the expression sexual revolution. And he didn't mean that metaphorically. He believed, and this is sort of a Marxist belief, that patriarchy must be overthrown, and that heterosexuality must be overthrown as well, and that ultimately all sexual taboos must be overthrown. and that is what will lead to the classless society and the society of the greatest possible freedom. And his life is very much a story of his living that. If you look into his life, you might find that it's not necessarily a life that you would want anyone to imitate. And there's no reason to get involved in that. And then you come to Herbert Marcuse, who is another Marxist, very famous and prominent in the 1960s. And in the end, you come to Judith Butler, who is still alive. And again, we're not going to talk about that in great detail, but since the issue of gender is one of the main things we're talking about here, it's very important that when you want to talk about that, where did we get this talk in the first place? Where does it go back to? And so here you've got 5 people that are absolutely crucial. And we were being very careful in the way we talked about this in Rosales. And actually we should be very careful talking about it here as well, because today when you talk, you're talking to the whole world. And whatever you say is likely to be twittered all through outer space. So, and these are highly politicized, highly ideological issues. They can mean that you lose your job, that you don't get promoted. They have all sorts of consequences. But in order to speak correctly and eloquently about these things, then we have to understand that they have a genealogy. And you might want to check out these people and see what they intend and what they do. And the whole, what we use the word gender gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is an American term. I don't know if you use it in other parts of the English-speaking world. But gerrymandering is when you manipulate your political districts, you shift things around. But the gender gerrymandering, this really, a lot of this goes back to Judith Butler. And the fact that one of the greatest oppressions on earth is that you were given biological gender. This is her view, that nature is oppressive in that it made you a man and you a woman, and that you didn't have any choice in this, and therefore you existentially respond to that by deciding, well, what do you want to be? You can change your gender, you can be whatever you want to be, and that for her is an act of supreme freedom and so forth. So in any case, that's the context. And one of the things that we wanted to do is, like, how do we look at gender? And perhaps we can then come to the issue again that Imam Afroz Ali so beautifully talked about, of chivalry in this. But here we felt that let's approach this metaphysically. And again, that might be confusing to a lot of people. And metaphysics are difficult. Not everybody can relate to that. But God created the world and made gender a fundamental aspect of the cosmos. That God is the one who creates from nothing, and He creates the first perfect being. One makes one, and then you have pairs. And from the male you have the female. And you have the day and the night, and you have, the different pairs that go through creation. And their gender is a big thing. The creation of the male and the female. The creation of pairs. And then you have other things, triads as well. So God makes pairs, He makes dualities, and then He has triads. Among the triads that are very important are like Malakut, Jabarut, Malakut, and Mulk, the realm of the lights before creation, if that's correct to say it that way. Al-Malakut, which is the great realm of creation, the angelic world, and the mulk, which is this world right here. That's a triad. And we have many other triads as well, like color. What is the triad of color?
3 basic colors.
Which are?
Oh, the pressure. I think it's red, blue, red, yellow, and
You got it.
blue.
Blue.
Right? Yeah.
Red, yellow, and blue. That's very impolite what I just did. But I knew she'd get it. Isn't she the best auctioneer in the world? We could have her sell these chairs and sell these. And, right? MashaAllah. She's really good. I enjoyed the auction so much. Also, Iman, we have to give her credit. She did a good job, too. But God creates from pairs, and the pairs are very, very important. And there is a book that you can get if you're interested in this, which is The Tao of Islam by Mrs. Murata. This is a really amazing woman. And she has a book called The Tao of Islam. She always uses Cantonese Chinese, so I've been trained to say the Tao of Islam, but she's got Tao, which is the Cantonese, right? They say Tao. And that book is profound. I'm not sure that I can recommend to all of you to read it because it's difficult. And she gives you so much information that you may find some of it very confusing, especially if you haven't read things like that before. One of the great things about Murata's book, The Tao of Islam, is the quotations. Because she has quotations from Arabic sources and from Persian sources. And she may have some others like Chinese and so forth. She knows Chinese, she knows Japanese. She is Japanese, but she knows Chinese really well. And her translations are fantastic. They're really good. And if you read it, pay attention to the translations. Sometimes she'll give you a block quote that's a whole page long, and you may not want to read it, but actually it's very worth reading. But one of the main things is what we call male principle and female principle. And these run through all creation. And they also are manifested here in the men and the women. This gender, this big deal, what some people regard today to be oppression. Standing oppression. Why should you be a man? You can pick from so many possibilities. Over 10 now. And then they've got even other. And if you question that, you're probably out of work at Cambridge, or at McGill, or at the University of Chicago. And you have to be very careful what you say about that in our countries. But the male principle is very, very interesting. And I'm not sure that I can make it easy for you to understand. But let's try that. One of the most important things about principles is that they are pure. They are unmixed as principles. So the male principle is that way. And it has certain qualities that are like yin and yang. And the yin and yang that you have in Chinese thought, and we have in probably most Eastern thought, right? Wouldn't that be true? This is brilliant, yin and yang. Yang being the male principle, which is white, and in the symbol, and yin being the feminine, the female principle, which in the circle is black. And this is a powerful symbol, and it is a very accurate symbol. And all of you who visualize that, you know that in the yang part of the circle, which is white, there will be a black dot, which is female principle. And in the yin, which is black, there will be a white dot, which is male principle. And this is really brilliant. And basically, I would say that the way that the Chinese understood yin and yang, and the way that it's understood in, maybe in general, in Oriental traditions, if that's not too broad. In martial arts, for example, you know, it is profound. And it's something that is very similar, if not identical, to the way we also understood the male and female principles in Islam. And we have beautiful, beautiful expositions of that. How many of you have seen the movie Ip Man? Okay, so I think it's a movie that's worth watching. And again, Ip Man, who I presume that it's relatively authentic. Probably it's got some fiction in it. But Ip Man is the greatest of all. And yet his particular art is the feminine style. And it's that femininity, that female principle, that makes him so powerful in the end. And also in the history of martial arts, and especially we have our wonderful brother here, Sensei Hakim from Indonesia, and his wonderful wife, Shinte, who are descendants of the Wali Songo, by the way. She is the descendant, forgive me for saying this in public, of Kali Jaga, who is one of the greatest of all. And this wonderful brother is the descendant of Kali Jaga's Sheikh, who is Sunan Jati, Gunung Jati, right? But, you know, so the male principle as a principle is pure, unmixed. And I don't want to describe it because some of the women might get up and walk out. Because we say, what? 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 I'm out of here. I'm not going to hear that. And the feminine principle is pure as a principle, unmixed. But they are not that way in reality. Do you follow that? That as principles, they are pure and unmixed. As manifestations in reality, they are mixed. Just as you have the black dot in the yang and you have the white dot in the yin. That's the way they manifest themselves in creation. And it's very important because the first manifestation of the male principle, maybe I shouldn't use the word first, but maybe the greatest manifestation of the male principle in reality is the Arsh, the throne of God. The throne of God, the greatest of all things that God created. And the first manifestation, again, maybe I shouldn't use that word, one of the great manifestations of the female principle in the cosmos is the footstool, the pedestal, the kursi. The kursi is not the throne. The kursi is the pedestal of the throne. And that's feminine principle. However, the throne, with regard to God, is feminine principle. The throne is male principle with regard to the pedestal. The pedestal is feminine principle with regard to the throne. But with regard to you and me and the world below, the pedestal is male principle. So they go back and forth. Are you able to follow that? And that's because wherever you will find the male principle, you will find with it the female. Water, for example, What principle is water? Male or female? So beautiful, quenching. This water here is female principle, right? But what about the water of the waterfall? What about the water of the tidal wave? What about the water of the iceberg? You see, so water also will be sometimes a manifestation of female principle and sometimes a manifestation of male principle. Water can move mountains. Water is powerful. And you have beautiful rain. One of the things I love about Nusantara is thunder. I love thunder. It's the angels, the voice of the angels glorifying their Lord. And many of the days we've been here, we've had nice rain. That's female principle. But sometimes the rain comes down really hard, and that is male principle. So they go back and forth. And if we were to look at the man and the woman, as Imam Afroz has said, you've got to have both. You've got to have both. So the man and the woman, they are as different as they can be. That's what makes them so similar. That's what makes them perfect complements. And the difference here is that in the man, let's imagine the man as a component of parts. Just imagine that. Okay, so any part you take of that man, the male principle will be outward. It will be foremost. And in that is the female principle. Whereas with the woman, if you took that same part, just to imagine it, the outward of it will be female principle. If you want, yin. And the inward will be yang. It will be male principle. Okay, and this is why the two come together so perfectly, because they complement each other in all ways. They fit together with absolute cohesion. And the woman is never a manifestation of the female principle in everything. And nor is the man ever a manifestation of the male principle in its purity. You've always got the two together. And you can always flip the coin. And that's why the man can't be a man. He can't be the kind of human being he's supposed to be unless he has the feminine aspect. He's got to have that. And that means that he's got compassion. It means that he's got empathy. It means that in his attitude towards his elders and his parents, he should be pure feminine principle. That you listen to your mother. You obey your mother. You listen to your father. You listen to your teacher. You can't be a student if you don't have feminine principle. You've got to listen. You've got to study. You've got to obey. And again, we don't like to use those terms with regard to women today because of the subordination and the subjugation of women. But these principles are not about that. These principles are about getting ourselves right. So every man has got to have female principle. And he's got to have it in the right measure, in the right place. Men are tough, right? Is our sister Hafsa here by any chance? Hafsa, is she here? Okay, but do we have any students of Hafsa? I think we do, but I'm not going to call names. But are men supposed to be tough? Never in your life. That's not a man. That's an abrasion. The man has to be able to cry. Man has to be able to feel. He's got to be able to have empathy. He's got to be able to feel pleasure, and he's got to be able to feel pain. And if he doesn't, he's not a man. When he toughens up, like, pain doesn't affect me. You probably never saw the movie Lawrence of Arabia, did you? Did you? Can you raise your hands? How many watched it? My name was Lawrence. So when Lawrence of Arabia came, I skipped school. And I went to the movie theater. And I watched it all day. I was fascinated by Arabia and Lawrence of Arabia. And you remember that Lawrence of Arabia, when he takes the match and puts it to his finger, doesn't burn him. That's nonsense. He was probably that way. He was probably that way. He was probably psychotic. But that doesn't make for a good husband. And that doesn't make for a good man. The Prophet ﷺ, was there a lion who was more chivalrous than he anywhere? And yet, do you think he didn't feel pain? Do you think that he didn't feel pleasure? If you don't feel pain, you don't feel pleasure. And if you don't feel pleasure, you're going to be worthless as a husband. This is one of our problems. The tough man. He's really not a man. He has betrayed his feminine principle. And therefore, he's become capable, of just seeing it through to the end. But that's not. He's paid a price he can never afford. Okay, so the man's got to have he's in every part of me, in every part of you, there is the male principle, female principle. It's just that because you're a man, the male principle will be always the default principle. And, okay, sorry. That's okay. She got me off the hook. I got 10 minutes. And I accept that. Female principle. Okay? And, but the man's got to have that. And the female has got to have the male principle. She does. She does. She is a matriarch by her nature. And this is something our beloved Imam referred to. But we need patriarchs who are fathers. That's what a patriarch is. It's a father who runs his family. But the patriarch has got to have a matriarch. You've got to have a mother who runs her family. And in healthy civilizations, this is what you have. What do you think our mother Khadija was, if not a matriarch? What do you think the blessed Aisha was, if not a matriarch, even though she was never blessed with a child? Salama, what do you think she was, if she was not a matriarch? What about Nusayba or Nasiba, the warrior? She is a matriarch. And so you have to have both together. But in the woman, the default position is female principle. It is the dominant position. And she needs to be a woman. She needs to be a woman. But then in that, there is the male principle. When the mother stands up for her children, that's male principle. Don't get in her way. I've known women like that, if you do anything to their children or their neighbors' children, I remember, I had an aunt, that my brother got on drugs. He's a little brother. I was a relatively new Muslim. This was 1970. I was probably a brand new Muslim. Might have been 1971, but I think it was 1970. And my brother got on heroin. And my mother was in Africa at that time. My father was teaching at King Abd-Allah, not at King Abd-Allah, that's my university. He was teaching at Abd-Allah Bayero University in Nigeria. And my mother came back for my brother. And I'm the big brother. And she knew where he was. And drugs in those days were a little bit different than now. So she knew he was in a drug house. She knew where he was. And she said, "You're going in and you're going to bring him out." And what did I say? Labayki wa sa'dayki. Whatever you say. And I walked in. And, I'm not going to tell you the scene. But I walked in, there was my brother in the corner. He didn't look like my brother. I walked over to him. I sat down. I said, "I'm taking you out of here. And you're coming." And he left. And they didn't do a thing. They didn't do a thing. However, and then we hid him. And he was basically not psychologically there. He was out of it. But, so we hid him away. We didn't take him to our family. Then we took him to our family. And they came and surrounded our house with guns. There were about 5 of them. And I had an Aunt Louise. She was the most difficult woman in my life. But, she did have male principle, that's for sure. And she took an automatic shotgun, and she came out the front door. We had a farm. And she said, "This is private property." She said, "I'll give you to 10, and I start to shoot." And they got out. They ran. It's like they weren't ready for. She said, "No, I'm start 10." I count to 10, and then it's war. So that's male principle. And again, it's like, this is my nephew. You think you're going to give him back? And then after that, we took him out. We sent him to Africa, and it's another story. But the woman, when she raises her children, she can be male principle, right? And when she teaches, she's male principle. So these two go together. And this is something that we have to learn to cultivate. I think we're out of time. We're almost out of time. But I want to let us look now at, let's say a verse, because I didn't talk about chivalry, but actually our brother did more than adequately. But let's take a verse that embodies, in my mind, the perfect chivalry of the Prophet ﷺ. And all of the prophets were chivalrous. Futuwa is the fundamental quality of every single prophet. And again, we have Sensei Hakim, God bless him. One of the things he says is that with the youth today, young men in particular, you don't want them to be extreme, do you? You've got to give them futuwa. If you give them futuwa, they will be a service to the community. And this is the way we were traditionally, that we teach our young men and women, but especially young men, to be feta, to be a chivalrous youth, who I'll give my life for you. I will give you my money. I will give you everything. But, when the Prophet ﷺ is near the farewell, God reveals at the end of Surah Tawbah the beautiful farewell verses. لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. There has come to you a messenger from yourselves. What an honor. You mean I belong to the same stuff, the same humanity as this prophet? What an honor for me. He lifted me up by letting me be of what he was. There has come to you a messenger from yourself. That means he's leaving you. Abu Bakr knew that. Radiallahu anhu, he's going to leave you now. He has come to you and he's going. لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ. It is, how do we translate that? I wish I had a good translation with me. But it is عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ. How can we translate? It is very difficult for him that you meet with harm. حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ. He is intent for your well-being. بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ, with regard to the believers, رَؤُوفٌ Rahim. He is kind and merciful. So who does this refer to? There has come to you a prophet from yourselves. Who is referred to here? And this is all the people that he was sent to. Even Abu Lahab, his uncle, who was the most painful story for him, betrayed by his own uncle. Even Abu Jahl. Do you think he took joy in their misguidance? No. It was aziz alayh. It was difficult for him. And he was intent on their well-being as well as yours, everyone. So this includes everybody. And this is because the Prophet was a man. Just as Khadija was a woman, and Aisha was a woman, and Salama was a woman. And therefore, we say in our tradition, he felt the pain of all those who had pain. He wasn't, like we might imagine, a Superman who doesn't feel anything. Now, he was the Superman, but he felt everything. He felt the pain of everyone who has pain. And he felt pain for people who couldn't feel the pain because their hearts were dead. And he felt the pain of the dying heart. And he was intent, earnestly seeking their well-being to the end. So this is the magnanimity that we have to have. And really, one of the things that if we had our sister Hafsa here, or her students, but they could tell you that, one of the main things when we talk about husband and wife is like, the husband has got to feel pain. And if he doesn't, he won't feel pleasure. He's got to feel sadness, or he won't feel joy. He can't be that tough man, the macho image. That's not a man, that's a machine. No man is like that. Muhammad Ali was not like that. Muhammad Ali was a man 100 times over, but he could cry. And he felt the suffering of poor people. And he had compassion for all people. Okay, and the woman's the same thing. And the woman has to be very careful too, because you don't want to be tough. You want to succeed, yes. And may you succeed at everything. And you have the male principle in you. You use that. But you've also got to feel pain. And usually women do. Women usually stay closer to their natures than men. But then also you've got to feel a pleasure as well. Joy and sadness. And the strength of the human being is when you can live with that pain and it doesn't overcome you. And you can live with that joy and it doesn't intoxicate you so that you become insane. But you've got to have it. And most people, it's like they just can't deal with that, so they shut it down. And one of the great things that we learn from great teachers like Hakim Archuleta, and I know that our sister Hafsa, she knows these things inside out. One of the things we learn, is the fact that we have to get in our bodies. We have to get back in ourselves. We have got to feel. One of the things that they will have you do is track sensation. You say you're angry. Okay, track the sensation. What's happening in here? What's different in here? And if you can't find something, then there's nothing there. That's psychotic. That's not real. It's in the psyche. So we're going to open up the floor now for you, and I hope that that we will benefit from this exchange. And I apologize again for any shortcomings in the presentation. And let's start with the questions. Bismillah. Mm-hmm.
The organizers would like to give them a short tea before.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, you're the MC, right?
Thank you very much, Dr. Omar, and thank you very much, Imam Afroz. I think the organizers would like to give us all a short tea break of about 10 minutes. So if you'd all
Is
like
that
to...
male or female principal? What would you say? Huh? Okay, let's do it. Okay.
So if you all like to head out that way and then come back as soon as you can, and we'll get on with the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Actually, the sun is...
It's right, I think I've got the other way around. It's female.
Okay, I will read it now. I didn't want to read it just now because I didn't want to seem without adapt. Yeah, I was just checking times because I got to calculate 10 minutes, calculate 5 minutes, that kind of. So let's have what this was saying. Would you like?
But as a principle, we say the sun is masculine, and the moon is feminine. Although you're right, in gender, they're inverted. I think that has to do with the Abrahamic destruction of idolatry. That's what I think.
Actually, I read, so I can't remember right now exactly the sun being, I just can't remember exactly where I got this from. The sun being feminine and its light being masculine. Yeah, something like that.
How are you?
Dr. Omar, I'd like to give you a book. This is a custom book, the latest translation by my sheikh.
Thank you very much. And where is your sheikh? Where does he live?
He lives in Pakistan, we are Chistis.
Thank you
He's
very
already
much.
passed away.
Thank you very much.
I like it. Perfect. Who is it?
Thank you. This is your name?
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
wrote a note for you.
Thank you. And what is this?
For you to put the book.
Oh, let's do that. Thank you. What is your name?
My name is Nafisa.
Thank you,
I
Nafisa.
hope to come and see
That
you in
is a
Spain
great gift.
in
Thank you very
June,
much.
July, inshallah.
That is a great gift. Oh, they will.
Anyone will come, he just went to the restaurant.
Okay. How are you doing? Anyway, you are fantastic. No, you didn't. No one would ever know. And this is also important because you probably know this, but you can tell it. And you did it fantastic.
I'm so sorry that I had to give you this next, but it's the organizers.
That's what you're supposed to do, male principal.
Sorry, I'm really sorry.
You're male principal. And anyway, I'm really, really proud of you. I'm happy to see that. We have a lot of now, do you want to open up the floor?
Straight away. Oh, I'm
I'm going to leave that.
all right. No worries. You have your...
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, decided that you should have coffee, but if you
Is
want
this
tea,
coffee?
This is coffee.
I think I'd rather have tea.
With milk or without?
Milk.
Milk.
Take some sugar.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'll have some of this. Thank you. That's very rude of me. Forgive me. That's very rude of me. How are you? Please. You want to turn it off? Very good. Very good. Very good. Thank you very much. I'm so rude. Thank you, Sidi Rizal. How are you? How are you?
I'm from Pakistan, I'm studying here, and I came to the RIS, and you spoke about how Pakistan, had been Sierra Leone. This is the first time I felt proud of my country, because, we're generally known to be not nice people, not to be cheats and terrorists and all these things. Even at uni, I get things from people, don't bomb me, and Taliban kind of compliments from people.
Oh, that's not nice.
I know it's not.
Where are you from in Pakistan?
Karachi. The one that meets Arabian Sea.
And are you Sindhi?
No, sir, I'm Maiman.
You're
But yeah,
Maiman.
I'm somewhat. You know Maiman?
Of course I know Maiman.
Really, sir?
Yes. I have lots of Maiman friends in Karachi itself.
Really?
Yeah.
The Batra walas or what? I'm Godel Maiman.
I know them by their first names, Abdul Rashid.
The ARY people,
They are big merchants.
Yeah. Maimans are generally industrialist merchants, yeah. So I'm so thankful to you. I felt.
How did the Maimans become Muslims?
Sir, I don't know, but I know my grandfather. He was from India, and they came to Pakistan, this side of the subcontinent, before partition, and they set up industry. I don't know how they became Muslim.
They became Muslims through Sheikh Abd-Allah al-Jilani.
I don't know, honestly.
We follow Sheikh Abd-Allah al-Jilani. Well, the Maimans love Sheikh Abd-Allah al-Jilani, and he's a great sheikh.
The thing is, I'm kind of outcast because, my dad's family is really conservative, and they never accepted my mom because she's not famous. She's kind of kicked out of the family, so I'm not really named my name.
Oh, okay.
So that sort of situation.
What is your name?
Aisha.
Nice to meet you, Aisha. What's your last name?
Aisha Sohail Godel. Aisha Sohail Godel.
Sohail Godi.
Aisha Sohail Godel.
Sohail Godi.
Yeah, my father is Sohail.
MashaAllah. Nice to meet you, Aisha.
So thank you so much.
Inshallah.
I didn't really know you.
I go to Pakistan every year.
Really? Where in Pakistan? Where in Pakistan?
Many different places. Last year we went to Rawalpindi, Lahore, Islamabad, Rawalpindi. We went to Herat. We went to Multan, Uch Sharif, Karachi.
I hope when I graduate and I go back and I'm a psychologist and studying to be a psychologist, I really
hope you'll
hope
be
I
very
can,
successful.
Inshallah, I hope I can, host an event like this in Pakistan. It's not this common back there. It's difficult.
May you be successful.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
The colour looks terrible.
This is terrible to me. Look at this. Making you do this. This is terrible.
Sorry.
You should punish me.
There's a bit more milk here if you want milk.
This would be great. Thank you very much.
I didn't put any sugar.
I'm going to take it like this. Listen, thank you so much. How are you doing?
How are you?
Listen, very well. How are you, my friend? Now, what's your name? Look at that beautiful name. I like that name a lot. And who's your mommy?
My mommy.
And who's your father? Good. Can you give them salam for me? Okay. Are you Malay?
No.
Where are you? Oh, from Pakistan. MashaAllah. Good. I'll see you later. Okay? Salam alaikum. How are you? Of course.
Okay. I would like to ask you.
Imam Afroz.
Yes, I do.
I would like to ask you, what is the element in the biography of
Why don't you ask the question here?
All good, eh?
Yeah, I can shine.
Is that my coffee there? Yes. Try it. Is it sugar in there?
Okay.
Please, sorry, Zadie. No, that's fine. You should bring a little thermos with you with you have any coffee. You should on the side.
Vous parlez français.
J'espère.
Vous parlez français très bien, sans accent.
Oh,
Let me just quickly talk to Sidi Hakim.
Pas trop. Darija. Darija et je vais de temps en temps au Maroc. Mais Inch'Allah. Jalila. 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 Barakallahu fik. Inch'Allah. Barakallahu fik. Salam alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
You offer me?
What was it?
I don't know for anything. I want to be Rasulullah SAW in our dream or and to find a partner. Do you like to have fun? Do you like to drink first?
Where's your cat? How are you doing? Good. How are you? How are you doing, my friend? Is everything okay?
Interesting story with you. Inspired by Malcolm X's part. It's interesting that you were inspired by Malcolm X's part.
So why don't you ask me why? In the group.
One of the interesting things for me was, I don't know about you, but my journey was a rather long one. Probably from being an atheist in my mid-teens through to, I suppose, my early 30s. I actually started asking questions when I was up to my forceps in dissecting a female scorpion. I was marvelling at the anatomy. Yeah. PhD is in evolutionary biology and Islam, so. And yes, it's misrepresented from both sides, but that's another story. What eventually did it for me was I met a Muslim and wanted to know a bit more about the religion. But because I wasn't a Muslim, I wasn't allowed to read the Quran, which is crazy.
Would you allow me to give some answers? Come.
I just wanted to say salam.
Sorry?
I wanted to say salam alaikum to you.
Alaikum salam. What is your name?
Sidra.
Sidra.
Yeah.
Sidra.
Sidra.
MashaAllah.
Yeah. I'm at your South Russia at the Glasgow Literature Festival.
Where are you? From Australia?
No, from England today.
From England. Wonderful.
Yeah, me
Wonderful.
and my friends, we just arrived today.
Okay.
I just wanted for you to do something about this.
Oh, right.
Is that okay?
Okay. So, do you mind if my friend continues talking?
That's fine. I'm so sorry for introducing you.
No problem.
No problem. But the last thing that stopped me was really the issue of Jesus, because I thought I was a good Christian. And I rejected Christianity when I was about 12. Because I realised I would have to sort of agree to accept Jesus as man and God. And it just didn't make sense to me. The person sitting in the Quran gave me something Muslim to read. And it answered the questions. Because Sahih Muslim is about what the Prophet said and did. of a sudden I saw this guy was exactly like Jesus. This guy was exactly like Jesus. He was a man. End of story. And then I knew it.
These are beautiful words. I began to drift away at the age of 12, and that was over the Trinity. My father was someone who really, I don't know that he intended to do that, but that's what he did. He asked me one day, do you really believe in the Trinity? In fact, he asked the question, I started. And then he, short discussion, he sort of showed that this is a contradiction. God is either one or he's not. But so that I began to drift from that line.
The best joke I've ever heard about that was the whole thing like the best. No. My father was. My mother was a good Anglican.
Your father's Irish?
Yes.
And so he's Irish.
No, well, about 4 generations back. My grandmother was a Protestant. My grandfather was a Catholic. And they were denied the full second lots of marriage.
My mom asked me especially for
Hi, nice to have you back. We'll start in a few minutes, but the organizers have asked if you can fill up the middle seats first, so that as others come in, they can just naturally move to the sides. So if you can all just squeeze yourselves in and fill up the middle portion first, and we'll start in a few minutes. Thank you.
Both, but I felt the night I had a little bit of coffee, right? And you can have the rest of the cookies if you want. The lady who sponsored RIS, and her daughter's name is?
Her daughter's name is Aida. No. Once they saw how it all came together, with the obviously the great team that RIS has, it seemed to me that they actually are quite happy. That's right.
I really hope that we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe someday Australia.
Inshallah.
Maybe South Africa.
South Africa would be pretty amazing.
It's a big deal.
Yes. It's a game changer in so many ways.
And but you really have to keep doing it.
That's right.
You can't polish the stone with the cement.
Yeah, well, it's
So, is the male lion the one that protects the client?
the male lion. Well, the male lion protects the client from outside, and the females from within, just in case there's inverters.
The ones who hunt the
The hunters are the females. The hunters are the females. The male lion basically does the protection of the boundary.
But usually when we see lions, they're just sitting in the park.
And so when they're sitting, they're actually re-nourishing themselves.
Okay, they're getting weight.
They're getting weight. That's right. They'll pack that. Like, in fact,
And how many males are usually in the flock?
no more than 3. But sometimes it can be up to 4.
And how many of them mate?
So usually the main mate, the main male, has the option to do so. And if there is a larger number of females, and I think it actually is more than 4 or 5, then that male will allow mating with the others. If they don't
And are the other males going to be his children?
he will guard them. That's right. Yes, yeah.
But they will be his
They
children.
will be his children.
Because he won't allow
Other, they will be killed. Exactly. That's right. Yes. Actually, the aspect of them coming in, I've saw a documentary about the complete vulnerability, which obviously the animal world doesn't see. So that's absolutely amazing.
So when he's protecting the pride from the outside, he's protecting it
from other lions, yes. Internally, for example, potential hyena attack, etc., will be the lionesses. His main concern is other lions. So they have obviously other male lions who are looking for mates, but also rogue lions who have been kicked out of their pride. Yes. And rogue lions, in fact, form kind of a pact with other rogue lions, and they can be in a pack of 5 to 7. You obviously know the story of Born Free, the lioness, Elsa, Joy Anderson. That's in your little movies.
All right. Are we ready
Okay,
to
young
start?
lady.
Yeah.
Soraya,
Thank you.
you do a wonderful job.
Yes,
God bless you.
Thank you very
You're
much.
extremely articulate and you're humorous too.
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
And yourself, Sheikh. Mama, thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome back. Before we begin the Q&A session, I've got a couple of announcements from the organizers. I have a feeling most of you probably received a reflection form when you registered today. They would really love it if you could fill that out and pass back to one of their staff or at the registration table on your way out. Everyone has a reflection form? Yeah, thank you very much. All right, well, welcome back, and this is the Q&A session. There's only one rule, no, two. There are two rules. The first is, all right, there are three rules. When you stand up, please state your name, and if you're from any organization, that as well. The second is, please direct your question to the sheikh that you want the question answered by. And 3, little less comment, little more question. All right? To get the ball rolling, I'm sure you've got a lot of questions, but I've got one here now, so if you don't mind, I'll get started with this one. Ready? All right. Do men need to show their feminine side to their women to actually be a man? If they cry alone but are tough to their women, is that enough?
Can I have that?
Sure thing.
That's a good question. The answer is no, no, no. All right? We don't have much time because we really should leave by 10:30, and it's 10 o'clock right now. And if we don't leave at 10:30, then the venue will charge us. So let's try to go quickly. I'm very sorry about that, but we should do that. But the husband has to learn to be absolutely compassionate to his wife. And this is a very important topic. You know, that, and you know, one of the worst things today is the way that gender relations have been destroyed by the film industry, who create a totally false image of the way the relationship between a male and a female, especially in marriage, should be. And then there is that great evil of pornography. And really, brothers and sisters, do not let yourself look at that. Do not, and both brothers and sisters do look at it sometimes. Not just men. That is poison, poison, poison. For men, it will make you impotent. So if you want to be that way, then help yourself. And so there are a whole lot of things here that are very important. And this is why also someone like Sidi Hakim Archuleta, and I'm sure Sister Hafsa, who's his student, they can teach you that, because we don't know how to be married. We don't know. And that's not surprising, because we have to be taught everything as human beings. But let's just leave it at that, because we don't have much time.
Thank you, Dr. Umar. Next question, please. Thank you. Yes, the lady over here.
When you mentioned about diminished manhood, and I'd like to address these questions to both of you, but Imam Afroz first mentioned about diminished manhood. Do you think the biggest problem now is diminished female principle in men, or diminished man principle in men? Thank you.
You came to test us, didn't you? If the in my personal opinion, in fact, it's both. The current dilemma and situation we find ourselves in, it happens to be that, in fact, we have to critique, and if I could say, criticize in a manner for us to be to changing the circumstances we find, is in fact both of them are missing. So, for example, the question in relation to should men cry alone, we have forgotten that the vulnerability of the male, by which he expresses himself to his wife, where they both love each other, is in fact one of the highest stations of expression of love. So this is the feminine side. On the male side, if you look around over here, it's approximately 60% of women. So this man attitude that I know it all, which men are very, very easily, they have a tendency, the propensity towards arrogance and pride. So this pride that in fact I know this all, or why do I actually have to be there? Look at me, I'm men. This is actually also a deficiency in the male side, as a quick example. So I believe in fact it's both ways. When you lose one, you tend to lose both.
I would just say that it is true that the male principle can be diminished and the female principle can be diminished, but the issue is balance. This is the word that we want, balancing. You want to balance both of them so that they're both there and they both click in at the right time in the right place.
Thank you very much. Next question, please. Yes, sir, the man in the front row.
This question is for Imam Afroz. Imam, who should be boss at home?
The feminine side of myself says, I think the term boss is the problem in all seriousness, because nobody's boss. We don't own people, and we don't have a kind of an attitude of you're under my control. And therefore, the leadership inside the house, and this term leadership is extremely important to be understood, that this person is a person who is the servant of who he in fact leads. In fact, if we truly lived the life of a man, and taking nothing away from the female in this regard, what I'm about to say, it's tough being a man if we truly want to be a man, because ultimately the man's life is a very supposed to be a very selfless life. And so it's about consultation and leadership in a manner where he is foremost in making sure that he first and foremost is a person who is leading a life that is with consciousness of God subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if I can briefly, I won't take too much of my time here, if I can share a very real situation to actually explain in terms of diminished manhood, and also this aspect of who is boss really ultimately, and leadership and servitude and servant, and particularly from the perspective of the father. Many months ago, approximately 2 years ago now, in fact, I was called by a father to join them because their son was graduating. He actually had a particular medal to be given, etc. So he wanted to come with me, for me to come with them, supposedly some barakah. I mean, I was just going there for some tea and coffee. So I went there, and the father was sitting over here, the mother was next to him, and the son was then called over to actually be given his degree and then asked to actually, in fact, say a few words. And he gave a brilliant speech. However, in his entire speech, he thanked his mother, because he outwardly saw what his mother did for him. And he explained those things: iron his shirts, make Milo for him when he was studying. He did mention Milo, by the way. And all of those kind of things. And not any one time did he mention what his father did. And I just glanced over to the father, and he just smiled. And I want to go back to the line again, because that's one of the natures that in fact comes out, where the selflessness and sacrifices that men give, they're not boss, they're sacrificers. They're people who are giving their lives for their children to the extent where they probably will never be acknowledged or even known what they have done. If I can end with this particular thing, when my father passed away, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him highest stations of Jannah, it's only when he passed away that we realized that he in fact looked after more than 20 families. During his life, we didn't even know that he was doing all of that. And I would say that my father was a chivalrous man. He didn't want others to somehow know what he was doing. He wasn't in our household telling us what to do. I was being consulted as a 7-year-old. Because he knew how to, as Dr. Omar was saying, this aspect of parental trick, right? You allow to actually have that conversation with the child. As a parent, you know where this decision ultimately has to go. But by using consultative techniques, he allowed me to be part of my life. That's chivalry. And that's leadership.
So the chivalrous husband or father should never take credit.
I think we should, as human beings, never take credit. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
All right, I'll take a quick question from here. Assalamu alaikum. Speaking of getting back in, this is for Dr. Omar, by the way. Speaking of getting back into ourselves, how do we get in touch with our masculine and feminine core? Because it's not just boys that are being told not to cry, women are being told the same too. And it's from our sister Saiha. Thank you very much. How do we get in touch with our masculine and feminine core for both men and women?
You want to also respond to this? What occurs to me, though, is maybe not an answer to your question, but we learn to be human beings from human beings. And this may be the biggest challenge that we have today, is getting human beings back into existence. Forgive me for speaking about myself, but this is what comes to my mind, that I lived in another world a long time ago, and that world was quite different from the world today. But in that world we had men and we had women. And I was raised by women who were amazing women, who were educated, who were strong, who worked hard, who really cared about us. And we got our personality from them looking at you in your eyes from the time you're a baby and raising you. And the men are also there as well, and they come in and they put, in many ways, the finishing touches on what the women do. But to get in touch with ourselves, you're not going to be able to do that by reading a book or watching something on TED or YouTube or something like that. We've really got to have contact with men and women. And companionship is everything. If I want to be brave, then I can do that. I keep the company of brave people. If I want to be generous, then keep the company of generous people. And this is why also one of the most important things that we have to strive to do as believers is to become human. And this means to restore the right balance in ourselves. And I want to remind you again of what Imam al-Ghazali quotes in chapter 1 of the Ihya in the Kitab al-Ilm, that if it were not for the scholars of the hereafter, who are women as well as men, people would become animals. And this is what's happening today. The monoculture is destroying humanity. And you're not going to learn to be a human being from your iPhone or your iPad. This is very dangerous. A friend of mine who's a neurologist, he says that today a young man will bump his head on the cupboard in the kitchen and come to him saying, I've got memory loss, I've got this, I've got that. I mean, and he says this is so common today with the young people, that the slightest accident, and they are sure they've got memory loss to their brain or something like that. And he said this is a psychological syndrome they call such and such. But my response to that is, I'm not sure this is a psychological response. Because to me, this is fundamental weakness, because you have not been humanized. Because to be humanized, you've got to have this direct, personal, face-to-face, eye-to-eye contact with human beings. That's what makes us strong. That's what makes us compassionate. That's what makes us men and women.
Thank you very much, Dr. Umar. We've only got time for about another 2 questions. I'll take one from you, sir, at the back in white, and I'll take one from you. So, ladies first. Thank you. Mike, please. Chivalrous. All right, sir, we'll have you first then. Thank you.
Microphone.
Sorry, thank you. Assalamu alaikum, Sidi Omar. I'm Ideal from UIA. In your erudite estimation, do you think we have female scholars who can be said to be at the same level as male scholars that we so highly praise in our halaqah? And so,
thank you very much.
We will soon, and we do have some without any question, but we will soon have. And you know, these are stars, and a lot of them are young women, brilliant women, very gifted. So we have to have women scholars and we have to have men scholars. This is a societal obligation. And one of the things that I am concerned with, and I know many of the people who were on the same page were concerned with, is helping the women scholars to become that. And one of these great women scholars today is Dr. Muna Hassan, who is at Duke University. And she's growing and growing. But she told me, I told her a few years ago, that now we're producing women scholars like so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. Speaking at that time of women at Zaytuna. And she said, you are preparing them for disappointment. Because, yeah, they're going to become women scholars and nobody will listen to them. So my response to that is that let's make sure we listen to them. We've got to create our own micro-society in which they will be honored as they deserve to be.
Thank you very much. Can we have the mic, please? Yes, Jalila.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
My name is Jadila.
Welcome, sister.
Barakallahu fik. I would like... Sorry, bonsoir. The question is for Dr. Omar. I would like to ask what are the elements in the biography of Malcolm X which has made you actually to convert to Islam?
Thank you very much.
Can I answer this question? So, we still have some time, and I won't take too long with this question, but my odyssey to Islam is a long story, and we won't talk about that because really, brothers and sisters, we do need to be out of here by 10:30, right? At 10:30?
10:30 we need to sort of finish off and then we'll start to make.
Okay, so we will finish at 10:30. And my apologies to you. Of course, if you want to put the money up, then we can stay. But it will cost us money, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to waste our money. It probably wouldn't be waste. My odyssey is a long story, and one of the things you'll see if you ask converts about how they became Muslims is that this is God's religion. This is God's religion. And in fact, I had a series of dreams from the time I was a baby that really mean that someday you're going to be a Muslim, even though I never knew that. But I would see myself in ihram from the time I was a baby, although I never knew it was ihram. And then I was raised as a Protestant. The first thing that happened was that the Trinity crashed. I just couldn't believe in it. I began to drift away. I became an atheist, but that didn't suit me right. And then I wanted to believe, but how? And I came to the conviction that God must exist, but He's one. So there was a search that was going on. And then when I came to the university, Cornell University, to begin my graduate studies, I had to read. I was actually in Shakespeare. That's what I was specializing in. But one of the things I had to take was a class in what was called Afro-American literature. Today we call African American. And so I was happy to take that course, but I didn't want to be studying it during the semester because I have to concentrate on my own field. So around the end of December 1969, I got all my books for the next semester, and then I took these Afro-American literature books and I decided, let's read them right now, and then I won't have to read them when I'm busy with other work. So I began with W.E.B. Du Bois, The Soul of Black Folks, and that book really riveted me because it showed me something I'd never been shown before. And then I went to another book which was by a Harlem Renaissance writer named Toomer, T-O-O-M-E-R, called Cain. It's a beautiful book, beautiful book. And then I read a little bit in Native Son by Richard Wright. And then I got the autobiography of Malcolm X. And this is about the end of the year, 1969, the beginning of 1970. I began reading Malcolm X on January the 1st, 1970. I read it. It hooked me. And the thing that hooked me was, I think, relatively early in the book. First of all, because this is a story that spoke to me. I'm from Nebraska, and Malcolm was from Nebraska. And he was burned out by the Ku Klux Klan in Omaha. And I'd been to Omaha many times. That was a big city for us. But I had an aunt who lived there. And so it's like, this is kind of personal. That Nebraska had a Ku Klux Klan? Yeah, so did Indiana, so did every other place. Then he goes to Michigan, which also in our family was like a family state, because we had all settled in Michigan in the 1830s. And in Michigan, his father's killed. So even though that I don't know if that means anything to you, but that hooked me. And then also Malcolm said, I think early in the book, that Islam was the religion that abolishes fear. And at that time, I had lots of existential fears, that really had to do with the fact that I wasn't right. That you've got to believe and you don't believe. And, so that, and it's like, is that possible? Is this possible that a religion can abolish fear? So that kept me reading. I read all night into January the 2nd. And about 7 a.m., I got up, put the book down. I'd finished the chapter on Hajj. That's almost the whole book, but not quite. And I put the book down. I went up and opened my curtains. I was on Lake Street in Cornell, overlooking Lake Cayuga, which is a beautiful finger lake. And it was a beautiful day. It was cold, but clear, and there was new snow everywhere. And it just looked like paradise. It was so beautiful. And then I went and sat at my table, and I said, what did you learn from this book? And then I said, you learned that God and Allah are the same. And again, that might sound funny, but we were brought up in the Christian church to believe that Muslims worshipped Allah, and that Allah is a different God. So I saw that no, Allah, and God are the same. That stuck in my mind. That might sound like duh, but for me, I'm a duh person, okay? And so that was it. And then I said, and Allah guided Malcolm X. You can see that. And that's basically what it took. Also, people are different, and my personality is one that attaches to leaders and likes to follow them. You may respect that or disrespect it, but that is my nature. So Malcolm was a person that I admired greatly. I had always admired him in the 1960s, but I'd never known him really as a religious figure. And I knew him and I had watched him on television. He's beautiful. And, he's black. And yet smiling, brilliant. And I know those whites, I happen to be that color myself. And I know what they're thinking. And, he knows what they're thinking too. But he's able to outpace them in everything. So I really love Malcolm. And then when I read the book, I become attached to him like never before. So basically it's like, you're my leader. You are my hero. You are my model. And I don't know anyone like you. Because Malcolm could not be corrupted. You couldn't corrupt him with money, with women, with fame, with fear, nothing. And so essentially he says that, racism is a cancer eating away at American society, and Islam is the solution. And then he also says, when he goes to Mecca, he says, it's like National Geographic. He said, there's all the different people in the world. And then also like, you never thought about Mecca, did you? You thought about every religion on earth but Islam. And then also that we need to have this religion. So basically that's all it took. And I began to pray, in the Christian way, with my hands like this. That was the first time I'd prayed in 6 years. And it was really and truly like something heavy came out of me. It was like an anvil of iron. That's what I imagined it as. And it just came out and went away. And I began to cry. And I felt beauty like I'd never felt before. So I'm thankful to God that He honored me to come into Islam through Malcolm X. And that book did it. And, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Pray for me. Pray for me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Omar. We've got about 2 minutes. First of all, I'd like to thank you for being such a wonderful audience and thanking Majlis Al-Rauda, Al-Ghazali Center, Itqan Integrated School, and Mbara. And for just half a minute, we've got our Mbara representative, Brother Abbas, to come and say something very, very quickly.
You have to listen to the MC. Assalamualaikum, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Imam Afroz, Dr. Omar, everybody here, Kak Dina, Syekh Abdullah, Kak Syahira. We in Mbara, we've been involved with Dr. Omar's tour in Malaysia. I think he's been here from 1st of March for race, very early March, and he's been going to Malaysia, to Brunei, to Singapore and back here again. And we like to thank him from the bottom of our hearts that he's managed to spend so much time in this region. He's hardly at home actually, he's never in America. And I think the people in America watching True Life Stream today would actually attest to that. But what we do, and we do because of our love of our Shuyu, is actually to try and live up to the ethos of doing things with love and being of service, and being of service to you. So we don't do this for anything else, but we want to serve you. And thank you very much for coming and supporting us and following us in all our endeavor. And I hope you could pray for us and support us in our future events. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much once again to Dr. Omar and Imam Afroz Ali. I hope you had a wonderful time tonight. Assalamu alaikum, and drive safely.
Ready to go, right?
Ready to go.
Ready to go.
As we go.
Okay, this